In the high desert country of New Mexico, where the mesas stretched like sleeping giants under endless skies, there lived a widow named Esperanza Delgado with her 4 daughters. The year was 1887, and the railroad had brought both prosperity and strangers to their small town of Tierra Seca. Esperanza had been beautiful once, so beautiful that men would ride for days just to glimpse her face at Sunday Mass. She had married the handsomest vaquero in 3 counties, and together they had created 4 daughters, each more stunning than desert wildflowers after rain. But beauty, Esperanza learned, was a curse disguised as a blessing. Her eldest daughter, Rosa, had eloped at 16 with a traveling salesman who promised her silk dresses and city life. She vanished like morning mist, leaving only a note that broke her mother's heart. The second daughter, Carmen, caught the eye of a wealthy rancher's son and was whisked away to live in a grand hacienda 200 miles south. The third, Paloma, fell in love with a young doctor passing through town and followed him to California, chasing dreams of the Pacific coast. With each departure, Esperanza's heart hardened like clay in the desert sun. She would not lose another daughter to the curse of beauty. She would not let the world steal her youngest child, her sweet Luz, whose name meant light, and whose face shone like the morning star. So, when Luz turned 15 and began to bloom into the most beautiful of all her daughters, with eyes like polished obsidian and skin like cream-colored adobe, Esperanza made a terrible decision. One scorching afternoon, while Luz slept peacefully in their small adobe house, Esperanza heated a pot of water over the wood stove until it bubbled like a hot spring. Her hands trembled as she carried it to her daughter's bedside, love and desperation warring in her heart. "Forgive me, Mija," she whispered, and poured the scalding water across the left side of Luz's face. Luz's screams echoed across the desert like a coyote's cry. The beautiful girl awoke to find her face forever changed, the left side scarred and puckered, her eye clouded, her perfect features destroyed. The townspeople called it a terrible accident, and Esperanza let them believe the lie. For 3 years, Luz lived as her mother intended, unmarried, avoided, the object of pitying glances rather than admiring ones. She tended their small vegetable garden, helped her mother with sewing, and spoke little. The bright light that had once danced in her eyes dimmed to barely glowing embers. But the desert has its own wisdom, and kindness has a way of revealing itself in unexpected places. Thomas Whitmore was a traveling photographer who came to Tierra Seca in the spring of 1890, documenting the changing West for Eastern newspapers. He was a quiet man with gentle hands scarred from chemicals and a heart that had been broken by the war between the states. He had learned to see beauty not in perfection, but in character, in the way light fell across weathered faces, in the stories etched by time and hardship. When he first saw Luz in the market, half her face hidden by a rebozo, he was struck not by her scars but by the way she gently helped an elderly man choose the best tomatoes, her voice soft as evening wind through cottonwoods. He asked to photograph her for his collection of Faces of the New Mexico Territory. "No one wants to see this face," Luz said, touching her scarred cheek. "I do," Thomas replied simply. "Every face tells a story worth preserving." Slowly, carefully, like a photographer developing an image in his darkroom, Thomas coaxed Luz back into the light. He showed her his photographs: weathered miners, proud Apache grandmothers, children playing in dusty streets, and taught her that beauty lived not in unmarked skin but in the courage to keep living, keep hoping, keep loving despite the scars. As weeks turned to months, something bloomed between them like desert marigolds after a rare rain. Thomas saw past Luz's scars to the strength beneath, and Luz began to see herself through his eyes, not as damaged goods, but as a woman who had survived, who had endured, who had learned compassion in the crucible of suffering. When Thomas asked for her hand in marriage, proposing with a photograph of them together, her face turned so both the scarred and unmarked sides were visible, both beautiful in their own way. Luz's mother raged like a dust devil. "I ruined you to keep you safe," Esperanza cried, the terrible truth finally spilling out like water from a cracked jar. "I destroyed your face so no man would take you from me." The revelation shattered something in Luz, but it also freed her. She understood now that her mother's love had been poisoned by fear, that the very thing Esperanza sought to prevent, losing her daughter, had already happened the moment she chose cruelty over trust. "You didn't make me ugly, Mama," Luz said, her voice steady as a mountain stream. "You made me strong. And now I choose to use that strength to build my own life." Luz married Thomas in a simple ceremony at the old mission church. She wore her grandmother's dress and no veil, her scars visible to all as badges of survival rather than shame. They moved to Santa Fe, where Thomas opened a portrait studio and Luz learned the art of photography, discovering she had an eye for capturing the hidden beauty in others, the lonely, the scarred, the overlooked. Their portraits became famous throughout the territory, not for showing people as they wished to appear, but as they truly were, flawed, weathered, real, and beautiful in their authenticity. Years later, when Esperanza lay dying in the same adobe house where she had once poured scalding water on her daughter's face, Luz returned to care for her. The older woman wept bitter tears for the love she had twisted into harm, for the daughter she had wounded in trying to save. "Can you forgive me, Mija?" Esperanza whispered. Luz touched her scarred cheek, then took her mother's hand. "I forgave you long ago, Mama. The scars you gave me taught me that real beauty comes from how we love others, not how they love us for our looks. In trying to make me ugly, you helped me become beautiful in the only way that matters." Esperanza died peacefully, her hand in her daughter's, finally understanding that love means letting go, that protection sometimes requires release, and that true beauty, like the desert itself, is forged in hardship and refined by time. Luz continued her work as a photographer for many years, and her studio became a place where people came not just for portraits, but for healing. She would tell each client, especially the young women, that scars, whether visible or hidden, were not marks of shame but proof of survival, evidence of a spirit too strong to be broken. And in the desert country of New Mexico, where the mesas still stretch like sleeping giants under endless skies, people say you can sometimes see her ghost at sunset, camera in hand, teaching the wind itself that beauty lies not in perfection, but in the courage to keep standing after the storms have passed. The moral of the story, whispered by grandmothers to granddaughters throughout the Southwest, remains simple. Love that seeks to possess will always destroy, but love that learns to release will create beauty that endures long after the desert sands have covered the bones of those who thought scars could stop the human heart from choosing its own path toward joy.